So the other day my daughter said something very disturbing. She was driving her Power Wheels Jeep and she said, "Daddy, it's not very fast." Oh, really? No child of mine is going to be riding in a vehicle that isn't fast enough. So what are we going to do about it? Well, I had the same problem when I was a kid, and my dad ended up wiring in extra batteries, so I had extra voltage. And that thing that I was driving was one of those the Safari Jeeps with the open and closing doors and the little, it was very nice. And the plastic tires could spin like crazy. So like my father before me, I have decided to modify my child's Power Wheels Jeep. But unlike him, I could just buy speed parts. But before I show you those nice shiny new things, let's get a sense of just how not fast the thing is. I took some video and measurements. I laid out a little course here, width of the driveway plus 20 feet in the grass to get a sense of how it handles in both kinds of situations. It takes a while to get across the driveway, and the grass has a little bit of elevation. The first bit kind of descends, and then there's a little kind of flat spot, and then it goes up. So there's a small uphill section. You can see it's really struggling. It just can barely, and she's just bored out of her mind. She's making fun of how slow it is. There you go, 24.6 seconds. And for this next bit, I did the vertical bit on the end of the driveway, so you can just get a clear vertical climb, starting when the rear tire hits the gutter and ending when the rear tire hits that little grass line at the top of the incline portion. 8 seconds. Okay. So you might recognize the Jeep in question. Here it is behind me. Early on in my YouTube career, I made this thing. If you remember from my early videos, please don't watch them, they're terrible. I took a Power Wheels Jeep, a red Wrangler, I chopped the body off of it, and I made this new one in steel. It was my first steel shaping project and my first welding project, and it doesn't look all that great, but which I hear is more natural. It makes it look more like a CJ2, which is what I based this one on. You might think it's slow because of all the extra weight, because it's made out of steel now, but really, I don't think so. I only think it weighs, I have zero data to back me up on this, by the way, but I only think it's about 10 pounds heavier than it was originally. And I think it's because the steel I made it out of is so much tougher than the plastic that it was originally made out of. It's actually much thinner. I think it's all 20 gauge or something like that, pretty thin sheet metal. But the original plastic was actually quite thick. And I had to saw through all of that plastic to cut the body off. It's pretty chunky. It weighed quite a lot. I was surprised how much of it I threw out. The real reason why it's slow is in part because my kid is growing, but also because only one of the motors works. The other motor is pretty much toast. It can spin the wheel if you pick it up, but it's bad. So it's already running on like 1.5 motors. And we're gonna fix that with these. I got 2 of these. These are from ML Toys. Performance Ride-On Parts. They're the 775 motors, and they came, I got them with the new gearbox with steel, with like a steel drive gear in them. You can get them with like just the gear, or you can get them like different kinds of motors. They're smaller motors, bigger motors. I got the biggest ones they got with the steel gears put in here and new gearboxes, because that thing was sitting outside like next to a shed for a couple of years before I got it. I have no idea how good the gears are. One of the motors being shot, the other motor, the gears are probably toast too. So I just got all new stuff. And then on top of this, I got these things. Essentially, it's a 24-volt conversion kit, which will fit just fine under the hood, because I made the engine bay quite a lot larger for the batteries. I had some batteries I was going to use for 24 volts, and then some idiot let 2 of the wires touch and one of the batteries melted, which smelled terrific. We're just going to ditch all that, forget it. But first, the motors. Here you can see the original tub. I cut the body off the tub. I left all this stuff kind of as it was from the Power Wheels thing, because I didn't realize this when I first started this project, that the motors and the gearboxes and the axle and all this stuff are kind of built into like a monocoque frame, like a unibody car kind of thing. Wow, you can take a look at the size difference on those motors. Yeah, this should be much faster. I think I'm just going to change the motors first, and then see how it goes with 12 volts, and then put the 24 volts in, and then see how that goes, which should be exciting. Now, I had all this stuff apart before, so I hope I can get this off without breaking it, but I think they did include a new one in the kit. These little push clamp things, they're not really meant to come off. There, oh yeah, look at that. Also on these, if I remember right, this is just visual. The wheel has a hub thing, and that actually engages with the gearbox. Let's see if I can show you here. See there, these little teeth on the gearbox, they fit in there, a hub, and then the wheel engages these four things, and that's actually how it's turning. Pretty neat. And now I can just slide this side out, and the motors fall in. And now it's time, it's probably a bad time to check. Are these the same motors and gearboxes? They look close enough. I'm sure it will be fine. Now I'm not certain which way these wires are supposed to go on. These are DC motors, so if you put them on backwards, they'll go backwards. I guess I only care as long as they both move the same direction. Otherwise, they're just going to be spinning around and around and around, which, you know, could be fun. I suppose it could be fun. Getting a look, these sure look gross. These original ones, definitely pretty gross. I'm glad there are drain holes in the bottom of this thing, because like I said, it sat next to a shed for a while before I got it. I got it for free. I may have mentioned that at some point, which is why I did not feel too bad. Why I did not feel too bad about gutting it with a giant saw. This is actually going a lot quicker than I anticipated it, but I suppose going fast is kind of the point here, isn't it? Pop that in, pop the wheels on because we got to be styling. See, push this ring back on. Here we go, these little lock rings. Let me see. Okay, yep, they're spinning the wrong direction. Change polarity. Cool. Okay, the instructions of a braking process. Lift the back things up and put like a brick on the gas pedal and let it go on low speed for like 25 minutes. This machine doesn't have a high-low speed, but it does have 12 volts, and I'm going to put 24 volts in. So I'm going to call 12 the low speed. I'm going to do that off camera. This is just a test with the new motors, but still the 12-volt battery. You can kind of see right off the bat it takes off a little bit quicker. I think even if the old motors weren't toast, these new ones would be faster because they're a bit bigger. But you can really see the increased speed on the grass part. It doesn't get nearly as bogged down near the end. She's still not super thrilled with it though. Okay. I did hear a wee, so that's a good sign. They're quite faster, 3 seconds faster out of 8. Okay, so what's the deal with these batteries anyway? I got an original powerwheels battery right here, and I got the new ones here, 2 of them. This is a 12-volt battery, this is a 12-volt battery, this is a 12-volt battery. But that's not the whole story. There's also capacity with batteries, not just voltage. This is a 9.5 amp hour battery, and these say on the side 12-volt, 12 amp hour battery. What that means is that one of these has a higher capacity than this one. So just one of these batteries is actually better than this. If you put this one in and see how far it goes, then put this one in and see how far it goes, it may be initially the same speed because the voltage is fine, but this one's going to die quicker. So not only is this battery just better, I got 2 of them. And they include some wiring, but first let's talk about how do you wire 2 batteries in instead of this? Well, it depends what you want. I have a very artistic diagram here. So you got 12 volt plus minus, 12 volt plus minus, 2 batteries. If you just take one of these, wire these up to here, you'll have 12 volts to your motor. If you flip the wires around up here, you'll have 12 volts to your motor backwards. That's how DC motors work. Now, one way to do this is wiring it in parallel. What that means is you take the plus up here, the plus here, put them together to one pole, minus over here together to one pole. What this does is it puts the batteries kind of in parallel. They're running next to each other, wired in like this, and you end up with a total of 12 volts. But again, not the whole story. Because you're running 2 batteries at 12 volts, you get more capacity, that amp hour thing. So it'll only be 12 volts. It won't be any faster initially than just one of these batteries, but you'll be able to drive much farther, like twice as long. But the kid didn't tell me that it dies too quick. The kid told me it's not fast enough. So that's where this comes in, and I suspect that's how they want me to wire it, because that's what they've included here. You'd have one, say you have this go to here, this go to here, and this go up to here. In this case, you have one battery, the electricity goes through one battery, then the next battery, then out. And that essentially doubles the voltage. So this, 24 volts. It doesn't go twice as far like the other method, but it goes there much faster, and that's the important thing, right? Faster is always better, always. So get rid of that. And this is how we're going to accomplish that. They give us this little plug here. You can get it with these spade adapters, or you can get it soldered together. I got it with these because I have all the equipment to like reconnect these. I mean, I have soldering equipment too, but like I have to go get that out of the work truck, and no one likes doing that. So we put these, one to black, one to red on the next battery. Get my T out of the way, don't want that getting all electrified. And put this here, and this here, remember, red positive, black negative. You never want to connect, you would never want to say connect these two together, you never want to connect these two together, and this one and this one are essentially the ends on a much more powerful battery than just one of these. So I'm actually glad they have this fuse in here too. So this is a 40 amp fuse. I'm also glad to see 40 amp, because when I had one of these as a kid and my dad hopped it up, I had 18 volts, not 24, because he had 3 6-volt batteries. And he put a main power fuse, which I suspect this one is, and he also put a fuse going to each motor. So I had 3 fuses. They're all 30 amp fuses. This is a 40 amp. And the main power fuse, the 30 amp, blew all the time because I did so many donuts. I would basically just do donuts with the thing until the 30 amp fuse blew. And eventually he ditched the 30 amp fuse and got me like a 50. And that one never blew. Yeah, it's kind of beat up. I need to paint it. Spilled a little bit of primer there. Whoops. But fitting it in the engine bay is nice and easy. I got plenty of room here. Let's set that in. I made this engine bay big enough to fit a car battery, full-size car battery. So these are actually, I have room for more. And because this hood has some extra height on it, like the top of it's right here, I could even fit another set of these. You know, I'd probably flip them around and then have some kind of bracketry to stop them moving and like hitting wires on stuff. And I should probably do that here, because like these could just slide around. And you really don't want like batteries and wiring just like flopping around as you drive around. But I'll worry about that later. So I disconnected everything while I was moving it because I didn't want to risk shorting out these fancy new batteries. Although with these spade fittings, you can't just take them in and off like infinite number of times. They get loose. And you can kind of tighten them, but still there's a limit. Really, you shouldn't be like constantly moving them around anyway because they get loose. And loose fittings are hot, burny fittings. But anyway, so we put this in here, wired it up in series, like the second picture I showed you. Stick this together in the nice Power Wheels approved connector, and run the test again. Okay, whenever you're ready. Okay, whenever you're ready. Okay. Fast enough?
Yes. Yes.
She also decided to take a couple laps around the house. I think she did more laps around the house after this than she did total since we got the Jeep in the first place. Like, she just kept going around and around, and the other kid joined in. Okay, well, if you ask me, that was a pretty successful test. 2 problems I've discovered. The pedal there, it's just an on-off switch. So basically you got full power or no power and plenty of wheel spin when you do that. I might want to get a speed control. There's a speed control pedal available for that, like speed control, like proportionate, and also a brake pedal. That might be an interesting investment in the future. Second issue, because this stretched Jeep wheelbase thing causes the steering geometry to be a little goofy, this, while loose, that's a problem. It's also too small. I'm gonna make a bigger steering wheel so the kid has more leverage cranking the wheel, because, you know, when the thing goes this fast, control is it's pretty important. Probably gonna 3D print it like I did those. Oh, and I forgot the last thing here. Came with a sticker.